Today I want to share with you the easiest focaccia, an Italian flatbread, that you'll ever make. If you want to knead it, you can. If you don't want to knead it, you don't have to, but it's going to come out perfect every time, and it was my sweet mom Gloria's way of making focaccia. Hi sweet friends! If we're meeting for the first time, I'm Mary from Mary's Nest and author of the Modern Pioneer Cookbook and the Modern Pioneer Pantry, and I'd like to welcome you to my kitchen. Now we're going to move over to my kitchen counter and we're going to start making the dough. And if you hear a little jingle jangle in the background, it's because I've got my sweet pup Indy as my helper today. So I want to bring you in closer so you can see exactly how I make this focaccia. Now, I was able to find the Italian OO organic flour, the double O, and this is an organic soft wheat flour. And this works very well for making focaccia, but you can use all-purpose flour if that's what you can find. That's what my mother always used. It was very rare that she had the double O flour. Maybe if my father was able to find it in New York City, but most of the time she was just baking with all-purpose flour. And you don't need any scale, nothing fancy. We're going to need 3 cups of flour. I've got a half-cup measure here, so we'll need 6. And we're really just going very old school here, nothing fancy. I'm going to just dip and level off with my finger, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll put 6 in here since, as I said, this is the half-cup measure. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add in a teaspoon of salt. And any salt you have will be fine. And I know I get this question a lot, can you leave the salt out for people who are on salt-free diets? Yes, you can be like they are in Tuscany and make bread without any salt in it. It does affect the flavor, but if you can't have salt and you want to leave it out, that's fine. Then we're just going to whisk this together, and then we're going to set this aside. I've got some warm water here, 1 cup of warm water, and really just the temperature of warm bath water. Don't worry, you're going to be fine. Your yeast is going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. If you can put your finger in and it feels comfortable, you're good to go. Now to this water, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now, if you don't want to use sugar and you want to use a different type of sweetener, you certainly can do that. You can use honey if you want, and the honey is not going to kill the yeast because yes, honey kills both good and bad bacteria by suffocation. But once you put the honey in the water, it loses its ability to suffocate yeast. So you can definitely go ahead and use honey in here if you'd prefer. I'm just going to stir up the sugar in the warm water just to maybe help it dissolve a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my yeast. Now, for making this focaccia, I recommend that you use active dry yeast instead of the instant yeast, because we're not in a rush. And as a matter of fact, if you decide that you can't bake this today and you want to go ahead and put your dough in the refrigerator overnight and bake your focaccia tomorrow, all the better. It's going to be even more flavorful. But this is active dry yeast. It's in this package is 2 1/4 teaspoons. So if you buy your yeast in bulk, you know how much to use. And this is an all-natural yeast that my friend Michelle told me about. I was very happy to find this. And I actually found this at Walmart. So keep your eyes open for this. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump in my yeast. Let that all sink down. I'm just going to give it a little stir to mix everything together. And then I'm just going to set this aside for a few minutes. Now for this focaccia, we're going to need some olive oil. And as you can see, I'm just using some extra virgin olive oil from Texas Olive Ranch. In Texas here, we do have olive ranches. And so it's nice. We've got 2 right in our area. And there's another one in South Texas. There may be others. But it's nice to be able to buy olive oil right from our own state. I live in Central Texas, in the Texas Hill Country. But something I want to mention about this olive oil, and you have to excuse my pronunciation if I don't say this right, but arbequina or arbequina, this is, as it's described underneath, fresh and buttery. And this is perfect for bread baking, but I want to also share with you that in your travels, if you find an olive oil like this that is described as fresh and buttery, this is perfect for any type of baking, savory or sweet. This is a very good everyday olive oil. And if you like making olive oil cakes, which are very popular in the northern Italian region, this is the type of olive oil that you can use. It's not going, even though it's a good high quality extra virgin olive oil, first cold pressed, it's not going to give you a heavy olive oil or peppery taste like that. This is the type of olive oil, and Arbequina, however it's pronounced, this may actually be a Spanish olive. I'm not 100% sure, but the bottom line is it's these varieties that are described as fresh and buttery are perfect for making olive oil cakes. And as it says down on the bottom here, kitchen staple, this really is one of the best type of olive oils to buy that are described as fresh and buttery, because they're so versatile, especially if you don't want to keep a lot of olive oils in your pantry, because they do go rancid if not used up relatively quickly. So this, you can saute with this, you can bake with this, both sweet and savory. You can use this to make salad dressing. And if you have an Aldi near you, at least in my state, they sell this at Aldi. So keep an eye out for it. I don't know if it's sold here in Texas, but maybe it's sold in other states as well. I'm just going to make a little bit of a well here in my flour and salt mixture, and I'm going to go ahead and add in my yeast mixture. Now, you often hear this, and it's a bit of a misnomer. The salt is not going to kill the yeast. There's just a teaspoon of salt in this flour, and so you don't need to make up your dough and then massage in the salt later. That's really unnecessary, because the little bit of salt that is in here is not enough to kill the yeast that's mixed in with our water. You need so much more salt, but you don't have to take my word for it. You can head over to websites that are true authorities on the subject, like King Arthur or Breadtopia, and you can read there that the little bit of salt that we've mixed into the flour is not going to kill your yeast. So I don't want you to worry about that, and you don't have to massage in the salt later. Alrighty, let's go ahead and add in our yeast and water here. Now we're going to go ahead and add in 3 tablespoons of our olive oil. And we just add that right into that liquid that we've added in there, right in that well. I'm just going to get in here with a spatula and start mixing this all up. Now, I'm just going to reach over here. If you have one of these Danish dough whisks, which I do have, you can certainly use that too. But I think that I'm just going to go ahead with the spatula, since I think most folks have this in their kitchen. And it's really just very easy. Just start mixing everything together. And I don't want you to worry about anything. If you're new to baking bread, this is really very foolproof. It's very forgiving, and yet it's absolutely delicious. So I mixed this best I could with the spatula, and now I'm just going to get in here with my clean hand, and I'm just going to mix this until it comes together and forms a ball. And I think you're going to really like this dough. It's just very soft, very easy to work with. Now this has come together beautifully. Now what we're going to do is hand knead this for about 8 to 10 minutes. But if you don't want to knead it, you can throw it in a stand mixer if you have one and let that do the work. But it's such a nice soft dough, it's very easy to knead. Now I'm just going to transfer it to my board here, and I'm going to go ahead and knead it. Now, because of the olive oil, this is a really nice dough that doesn't stick. So I don't always find that I have to flour my board. But if at any time you find that it is sticking, just flour your board and you're all set. So now I'm just going to knead this. I really don't do anything very fancy other than pushing it with my palm, rotating it, pushing it with my palm, rotating it, folding it in like that. See, I'm just kind of folding it in, and just like that, and just like that. And before we know it, it's going to really come together. and be a beautifully soft dough. And that's it. So I'll just finish this up and then we'll get ready to let it rise. Oh, and I just wanted to mention, I may not have said this earlier, if you are putting this into a stand mixer, you only need to knead it in there for about 4 to 5 minutes. But if you're hand kneading like me, then 8 to 10. And you'll know when it's ready, because it's really going to start to get nice and smooth. And when you pull it like this, you're going to feel it's very smooth. And it's going to come together beautifully. Now, there are a lot of different tests when it comes to making bread and working with dough. There's the window pane test for determining if you've kneaded dough enough. And then there's the finger poke test to see if it's risen enough. But I kind of always find that can make people a little stressed, especially if they're new to baking, because they say, oh my gosh, can I really see through the dough with the window pane test? That's where you take a piece of dough and you just stretch it out. And if you can see light through it, it's usually kneaded enough. And the poke test that's at the point where it's risen, to know if it's risen enough. And people are like, oh, is the dough coming back a little slowly? Is it moving? Is it not moving? I feel all of these things can just kind of complicate matters and make people nervous and unsure. And the bottom line is, if it's a little under-kneaded, if it's a little over-kneaded, if it's a little underproofed, if it's a little overproofed, it doesn't make a huge difference, and everybody is just happy that you made homemade bread. So don't worry about it. So if at 8 minutes you're kind of tired after kneading, fine. Just put it in the bowl and let it rise. And I'll show you what we're going to do to the bowl before we put the bread in, before we put the dough in. And remember in the beginning, I mentioned that if you're not in a situation where you can bake your bread right now and you just want to throw it in the refrigerator overnight, a lot of times I don't even need it at all. I let the overnight rise, so to speak, the slow cold rise in the fridge do the work. So you can throw it in your fridge and, overnight, 12 hours, whatever. And then the next day, bring it out, let it come up to room temperature, put it in your pan, and get ready to bake it. And it's going to be great. It's really going to be delicious because of the slow rise really does something very nice to the flavor. This is going to be delicious, but that adds, if you like sourdough, it adds a little bit more of a tang to the taste of the dough. And I love anything that has a little tang to it. Well, my dough is nicely kneaded, feels nice and smooth. And now what I'm going to do is just take a little extra olive oil and I'm going to oil the bowl here. And then I'm going to spin this dough around in there. Give it a nice coating. Perfect. Just clean the bowl here a little. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a dish towel here and I'm just going to cover this. If you want, you can dampen your towel. We just want to avoid the dough from sticking to the towel. But I've got a good amount of olive oil in there, so I'm not too worried about it. Now we're just going to leave this for about an hour, hour and a half. We just want it to double in size. Now don't worry. Just take a look at it before you cover it, and then eyeball it. It doesn't need to be perfect. About an hour, hour and a half, and we'll be ready to stretch it out and bake it. While the dough is rising, I just wanted to sit down and take a break, have a beverage, and fill you in on something that's kind of exciting. I'll have my mom's basic recipe for how to make focaccia over on my website, marysnest.com, and I'll put the link in the description below. And what's so great about this basic recipe is, as I mentioned in the very beginning, if you want, you can knead this by hand. If you want to put it in a stand mixer, my mom didn't have one, but if you have one, you can put it in a stand mixer and it will knead it for you for a little less time. But the good news about this bread is that if you don't feel like kneading it, and even if you're not able to make it the same day you mix the dough together, you can just throw it in your refrigerator and then take it out the next day, let it come up to room temperature, put it in your baking sheet, and let it rise for a little bit, and then bake it, and it's going to work fine. And you don't need to make a wetter, kind of typical no-knead dough. This will work perfectly. And what's nice is that in the refrigerator, it's basically doing the kneading for you, just like with a no-knead. But because there's olive oil in this, and it is somewhat, you're going to see, as we were mixing it, it's a soft dough, and it does really well in the fridge for an overnight rise, which is kind of exciting because I've always felt with these no-kneads that I had to have a really wet, shaggy dough. But I recalled when I started writing, which we're going to talk about in a minute, a magazine article that I wrote about this. I remembered my mother making this dough, and often because she was busy and didn't necessarily have time to bake the dough the same day that she wanted to serve it, she would put it in her refrigerator. Now, she didn't know anything about these no-knead breads or whatnot, but it was really more of a matter of necessity. So in the refrigerator it would go, usually on a Friday, and then Saturday during the summer months, we would be having a barbecue. My dad had built this whole stone grill with a patio that he was very proud of. And he would be grilling up something, and neighbors, friends, or our family, a lot of us all lived on the same street for a while when I was young. And my mother would just pull her dough out and bake her focaccia and not worry about it. But it always came out great. And so I started thinking about this, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to share this recipe with everybody because, I love no-kneads. But I love the fact that this dough is soft enough and moist enough but you don't have to worry about it being so shaggy and getting the water percentages or whatever the case may be just right. Just follow the basic recipe, and you're going to have the most wonderful focaccia when you're all done. And then you can top it with whatever you want. Which you'll see here, we're going to do the tomatoes and bake it with the tomatoes pushed into it, into the dough, and then we'll top it with the basil and the cheese when it comes out. But in any event, I wrote an article all about my mom and summer barbecues and making focaccia and some other wonderful beverages that go along beautifully with a summer barbecue for Backwoods Homes magazine. And I wrote it for their summer issue. And the folks at Backwoods Home magazine are so nice, and they are offering my viewers a 50% off discount on a subscription to their Backwoods Homes magazine. Now, if you're not familiar with this magazine, it's terrific. And if you're like me, as we build our kitchen libraries, our traditional foods kitchen libraries, it's nice to have hard copies. I love having this magazine on my bookshelf because it's so chock full with so many good things. And you don't have to live in the backwoods. You don't have to live off-grid. You can live in the city, the suburbs, or the country. There is always so many interesting things in here. And I'll pull this off my shelf time and time again to find the recipes, to find tips and tricks about gardening. There's so many wonderful things that are in this magazine. And if you are familiar with Backwoods Home magazine, and even if you're not, they have another magazine called Self-Reliance. I love this one too. Again, if you like knowing how to be self-reliant, no matter where you live, this is a fantastic magazine. And having both of these on my shelf, on my traditional foods kitchen bookshelf, I have 3 levels of shelves in my kitchen that I dedicate to just my kitchen bookshelf. And having these is just so handy and wonderful. And being able to get a discount, you can not only get the discount if you want to subscribe to this, if you also subscribe to Self-Reliance, you're going to still get the 50% off discount. So it really can't be beat. And I highly recommend these magazines. If you're not familiar with them, trust me, I can tell you 100% you're going to love them. If you like running a traditional foods kitchen, living the old ways, running a traditional, in essence, home, in that you like being prepared and stocking your pantry and learning how to garden, even a simple small kitchen garden, which is basically what I have. whatever you'd like to do in that realm of being prepared and cooking from scratch and trying your hand at gardening, whatever the case may be. If you can have backyard chickens, you'll learn about those here. There's so much that you can do and learn from these magazines. So be sure to take advantage of that discount. But I think my dough has approximately doubled in size. Again, it's not an exact science. Don't worry about it. Just eyeball it. But I just wanted to mention that if you have the April, May, June 2025 issue of Backwoods Home, I have a great recipe. I actually wrote an article for this issue too, all about how to make a savory alpine herbal soup. I don't know if you've ever made an herbal soup before. They're delicious. And if you can see I think I got the pictures right there. If you grow herbs, which, my gosh, they're so easy to grow. They're basically weeds, as many people say. But if you grow herbs, that is a great recipe. And so if you've got this issue, and I also have a blog post over on my website talking about the soup as well. So you can find it over there. But the recipe and a lot of details all about herbal soups is in this issue. And my focaccia recipe will be in their next issue, their summer issue, that will come out next. Alrighty, let's get back over to the counter and finish making this focaccia. Well, I let this rise for about an hour. It's about double in size. If your kitchen is very cold, it may take an hour and a half. If it's warm, it'd probably be about an hour. But this is basically all you're looking for, kind of like a nice little puffy pillow. Now what we're going to do is set this aside, and we're going to get our baking sheet. Now, before you even do that, go ahead and set your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I've got a half sheet size baking sheet here, just usually the standard size that most of us have in our kitchen. And then I've just got a little bit of parchment paper. If you want, you can put a little olive oil down if you don't have parchment paper. Whatever you want to do is fine. Now I'm just going to take our dough, and don't worry that we've got this bowl oiled and we're adding that olive oil to our dough, because that's exactly what you want. Because the secret to good focaccia is one that has a lot of olive oil on it. Now we're just going to stretch this out and fill the baking sheet to within about an inch of the rim. And in case you hear jingling in the background, that's my helper. Indy is helping me today here in the kitchen, my sweet pup. And every once in a while he sighs because he's saying, "Mom, why am I not eating some focaccia right now?" Alrighty, I'll just keep spreading this out. You just want to try to get it as evenly as possible. And if it's fighting you, don't worry about it. Let it rest a few minutes and then come back to it. Now, this is not an exact science. I do usually like to have it a little thicker around the edges, so as once I get it all shaped out, I usually just use my hands to kind of push it in a little, just to give those edges a little bit of thickness. In a way, kind of similar to how a pizza pie is, that the edges will be a little thicker. Well, that looks good. Alrighty, now I'm going to go ahead and get my dish towel. This has got a lot of olive oil in it, so I'm not worried about it sticking. If you have less, just go ahead and dampen your towel so that it doesn't stick. And we're going to cover this, and we're just going to let this rise for about 30 or 45 minutes. 30 minutes if you have a warm kitchen, 45 minutes if your kitchen is cool. Alrighty, now I'm going to uncover this, and all we're going to do is just dimple around. Any way you want to do this. There's really no particular pattern, just dimple like this. And then the fun part starts. We're going to take our tomatoes, and you want about 20 tomatoes, about the cherry tomato type or the little baby plums I've got here. Now, when I was a kid, my mother would get the tomatoes and the basil from her garden. And she would have us stay outside, and she would have us mash these with our hands. It was a big mess, and we had a lot of fun. But that's all you're going to do. You can certainly cut these if you want, but my mother would just have us mash them, and it can be, they can like squirt at you and all, and kids have a lot of fun with this. So if you've got kids, it's a great job. But as you can see, I'm just mushing with my hand. But what I'm going to do is just get a scissors and go in there and poke them so they don't squirt all over me. And then we'll basically mash them into our focaccia. Whoops. Basically what I do is go into my bowl with the scissors and I kind of poke all the tomatoes so they don't squirt back at me. And then I just cut them up, just a rough chop. That's all you want. You're just looking for the tomatoes basically to appear smashed. Now you want to take your smashed tomatoes and just evenly distribute them all over your dough. And the little indentations that we made are going to kind of pick up all the wonderful tomato juices. Wow, these tomatoes are so bright. I love them. And then just dimple a little just to get the tomatoes kind of securely pressed into the dough, and just make sure you evenly distribute them as much as you can. Now you can really go overboard if you want. I've just used about 20 tomatoes of the cherry tomato variety. I've also sometimes I've used less. Sometimes if you feel this is like too much for you, you can reduce it to 10 tomatoes, but my husband loves this with as many tomatoes as possible. So here we go. This is going to be wonderful. Now the next thing that you want to do is take, this is my fine ground one, take a coarse ground sea salt, or if you've got that fabulous flaked salt, this is the perfect time to use it. And you're just going to generously sprinkle this all across your tomatoes and dough. It's going to be scrumptious. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to mix a 1/4 cup of water and a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And then we're going to brush this across the top of the focaccia. The olive oil, obviously, is just what makes focaccia so good. But the water, mixing the olive oil and the water, this is something my mom always did. The water, I don't know the science behind it, but mixed with the olive oil, it helps, I should say, to just make everything like a little crisper. And just take a pastry brush if you've got one. I love this silicone one. My son gave this to me as like a stocking stuffer one Christmas, and I just love it. I normally have those ones that are more, they actually look like paintbrushes, but I guess they're food safe to use. But these silicone ones are fantastic. I'm just doing the edges first. Then we'll kind of come over the tomatoes and all the dough. Oh, it's going to be great. I think I meant to tell you maybe sprinkle the salt after this, but that's okay. I can't remember exactly what I wrote in the recipe, but it'll be delicious regardless. This is going to be great. And then if you don't use it all, don't worry. You can also save this to mix with a little, any extra that you have, you can save to mix with some balsamic vinegar and have that as like a little dipping sauce. Once you cut this up, perfect. Oh, it looks good. Alrighty, now into our oven. Now you may have wondered why I preheated the oven so quickly or so early. And the reason is I like my oven to get really, really hot, because by the time you open the door and get the baking sheet in there and all, the temperature drops. So I like the oven to be really, really hot before I put in my focaccia. But if you want to preheat your oven, halfway through the second rise, that's fine too. But I find this works very well. Alrighty, let's go get this into the oven. Well, I just took this out of the oven, took just about 25 minutes or so. And now I'm going to it's still hot, and so I'm going to start grating all of this Parmigiano Reggiano on top. Now, If you don't have this, you can also use Grano Padano. It's a little less expensive. It's a nice northern Italian cheese, a little less expensive. It's not aged as long as Parmigiano Reggiano, but it's delicious. And you could also use Pecorino Romano, which is the sheep's cheese, and that's one of my favorites. But it's a little sharper, and my husband likes the Parmigiano Reggiano the best, so that's what we're going to put on here. And you might hear my dog, Indy, drinking water in the background. He's been my wonderful companion today. Now we're going to just put the basil on top. If you want to be fancy, you can kind of roll them up a little. I'm not doing this as well as a chef would do it. And you can snip it with the scissors, or you can just tear it. Whatever you're most comfortable with doing. The bottom line is it's going to be delicious if this is all done. I have a little kitchen garden. I've got part in right outside my kitchen door. It's a little raised bed, and then I have some on the side of the house. And I love having a kitchen garden. Nothing like having fresh herbs. They're so expensive at the grocery store, yet they're reasonable to grow. So let's get a little more basil on here, and then we'll be done. We'll be ready for a taste test. Now I like to use a pizza cutter to cut up my focaccia. I find it very easy to do. Oh, and the dough too. This is hot, though. I'm trying to hold this steady. But this dough is beautiful, cutting through it. It's just gorgeous. And if you want more salt, you can definitely put your flaked salt on at this time. And if you really like the balsamic vinegar, this is a great time to, I'm going to slice this and I want to show you the interior. The pan is so hot, though. I probably should wait a little, but it is difficult. You can sprinkle some drizzle some balsamic vinegar on top of this, or even if you want it to be, you can use the really thick balsamic vinegar, although that can be expensive. So if you want, you can just take some regular balsamic vinegar and reduce it on the stovetop. Ooh, it's hot. But look at this. Look at, see how beautiful it is? See how light and fluffy? Oh, this is gorgeous. And then you have the luscious moistness of the tomatoes and some flavorful cheese and the basil. This is going to be a hit at your next summer picnic. My mother made this every summer, and it was always such a welcome treat. Now that I've cut this up and I've got some here on a plate, you might be saying, Mary, that looks like less than what you actually baked. Oh, and someone is very interested in having a piece of this. My sweet dog. Oh, I love this dog so much. This is Indy. But it was so funny because my husband is such a saint. He's been so patient as this has been baking in the oven. And he's had a number of slices and enjoyed them tremendously. And I'm going to tell you, that's what's going to happen with this focaccia. When you make this, and if there are people at home when it comes out of the oven, I'm telling you, everybody's just going to inhale it. And if you bring it to a picnic, yes, I'll give you a tiny little taste. You're a good boy. If you bring this to a picnic or a barbecue this summer, just the nature of how nice it looks. It's just so colorful and so pretty. And people are going to go for this first. This is like the first thing, if they have a little buffet line or something or a picnic table, people are going to put this on their plate first, I promise you. And everybody's going to ask you for the recipe. And please share. I'm a big believer in sharing recipes. We want to encourage people to bake, to make foods homemade, to serve them with love, and just enjoy thoroughly. Well, let's give this a taste. I think my faithful companion here is going to be a little jealous when I take a bite. I love an end piece, so even though it has less goodies on it, I love the end crust. I mean, let's take a taste and see how this came. It's just glorious. I love the texture. So delicious. This is just the easiest focaccia to make and the most tasty. These toppings are perfect. Now you can do anything. You could make a sweet topping. You can make other savory toppings. Focaccia is very diverse. There's so many ways to make and top focaccia. You have to let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to share some of my mom's other variations on this. But this with the tomatoes and the basil and the Parmigiano Reggiano is so good. Alrighty, now I need to give my faithful companion here, I got to use my clean hand and try to do this strategically. I was gonna, you know, I had a Boston Terrier. Oh, what a wonderful dog. He would always actually take the cherry tomatoes out of the garden. It was very funny, and he'd look like a little, yes, I'm gonna give it to you. I'm not gonna make him wait. Here you go. How is that? Now I got two dirty hands. You're such a good boy. Is that tasty? Okay, approved by Indy. And my Boston Terrier, if she was still alive, she'd want to eat the whole plate, wouldn't she, good boy? Now, if you'd like more recipes for how to make a whole host of breads, from no-kneads to very easy batter breads, quick breads, the whole 9 yards, be sure to click on this video over here where I have a curated playlist for you with all of those breads and more. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.